Tiny Mikado.
It's the Brookhill Sound Maker.
It's Clarion, yeah. Tiny Mikado. It all started in the Bible, Deuteronomy 28. King James Version, you can check it. We from Israelite. Oh yeah. And it shall come to pass. Africa's slavery was made legal in the Spanish Caribbean in 1501. Slaving our mothers and fathers, and so lost their lives. Many heroes died during the process. Puerto Ricans are part of Africans. They try to tear us apart, brainwash us, but we still Africans. Black is beautiful. Black is original. Black is beautiful. Hey, yeah. Black is beautiful. Black is original. Black is beautiful. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Black is beautiful. Black is original. Black is beautiful. Hey, yeah. Black is beautiful. Black is original. Black is beautiful. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To Matters Word of the Week, and here is this week's word: pestilence. Pestilent is a noun, and it means any usually fatal epidemic disease. It also means a pernicious evil influence, or to Matters Word of the Week, and here is this week's word: pestilence. Pestilent is a noun, and it means any usually fatal epidemic disease. It also means a pernicious evil influence or agent. Okay? And here is this week's sentence: the country was in crisis when it was plagued by both pestilence and floods at the same time. Some of you know that word from the Bible. Israelites.
I will execute judgment upon him with plague. I will execute judgment upon him with plague. I will execute judgment upon him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him, and on his troops, and on the many nations with him. And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord.
This is Rap News. The coronavirus was not made in a lab. The coronavirus was sent down directly from God. The coronavirus comes from the Nibiru Planet X Planet Hell system. Let's explain that. This fiery planet emits red iron oxide dust. It is coming in a cloud. That cloud is hitting our atmosphere at this moment right now. It is making some parts of our planet look like Mars, like Australia and Indonesia.
It's an alarming image that's become all too familiar for the residents of Mildura, with the city choked by the orange glow of another dust storm.
We definitely will say this is one of the worst years ever. I've only been a farmer for 19 years and it's been the worst that I've ever seen.
When we breathe in this iron oxide dust, a lot of times we are not even seeing it. And it causes sepsis, pneumonia. It is causing hemochromatosis, which is iron over
agent, okay? And here is this week's sentence. The country was in crisis when it was plagued by both pestilence and floods at the same time. Some of you know that word from the Bible. Israelites.
I will execute judgment upon him with plague. I will execute judgment upon him with plague. I will execute judgment upon him with plague and bloodshed. I will pour down torrents of rain, hailstones, and burning sulfur on him, and on his troops, and on the many nations with him. And so I will show my greatness and my holiness, and I will make myself known in the sight of many nations. Then they will know that I am the Lord.
This is Rap the News. The coronavirus was not made in a lab. The coronavirus was sent down directly from God. The coronavirus comes from the Nibiru Planet X Planet Hell system. Let's explain that. This fiery planet emits red iron oxide dust. It is coming in a cloud. That cloud is hitting our atmosphere at this moment right now. It is making some parts of our planet look like Mars, like Australia and Indonesia.
It's an alarming image that's become all too familiar for the residents of Mildura, with the city choked by the orange glow of another dust storm.
We definitely will say this is one of the worst years ever. I've only been a farmer for 19 years and it's been the worst that I've ever seen.
When we breathe in this iron oxide dust, a lot of times we are not even seeing it. And it causes sepsis, pneumonia. It is causing hemochromatosis, which is iron overload. And so it is causing diabetes, kidney failure, heart failure, liver failure, brain failure. It is shutting down our whole entire system of our bodies. And it's one person at a time as you breathe it in. It is the destroyer. It is here destroying before it sets this nation ablaze. It is burning in our night skies as we speak. Let's use common sense, people. Okay, you got a big red fiery planet emitting red iron oxide. The fish is dying, the birds is dying, right? The animals are dropping dead around the planet. And then all of a sudden, all these people is catching what they call the coronavirus and dropping dead in certain locales, right? Australia just put out some kind of, mayday, right?
The coronavirus will enter a pandemic phase, prompting the government to initiate its emergency response plan.
With cases of the virus now present in 42 countries around the world, the PM says the risk to Australia is very much upon us, despite the World Health Organization not yet declaring a pandemic.
And so did San Francisco, right?
San Francisco Mayor London Breed declared a local emergency today, despite no confirmed cases in the city.
And by declaring a state of emergency, we are prioritizing the safety of our communities by being prepared.
And so what's happening here? Wasn't that cloud of dust out there? Then those people breathing in? Wasn't those animals dying? Was not Australia on fire from the meteorites coming from this planet? See how that all goes and it fits hand in hand to death? Did not the Lord say in Ezekiel 38:22 that he was going to send pestilence down? Right? And this is the pestilence. You know, it's a part of the system. So if you don't take the necessary precautions right now, eventually it will shut your lungs down. You've heard me cough and cough and cough and cough and cough for months. It's because I'm breathing in this dust. That planet was right outside the California coast. That's where they spotted it at. So it's here in California, the biggest state in America. That's where the planet is showing up. Think about that, man. And so we here in California is getting it first. My whole family, my wife done been to the doctor 2 or 3 times for lung problems and things like that. Everybody having lung problems out here. We got masked. We had masks before the coronavirus came out. Because this is very serious, people. Very serious. And my lungs are still bothering me now. That will cause death. So we have to be careful about running, breathing in this air, not wearing a mask, and also the fools that vape, you will die right now from vaping. Let's get into it.
During a total solar eclipse, you can see the outer hazy atmosphere around the sun, which we call the corona, which we call the corona, which we call the corona.
Now we are going to compare dust pneumonia with the coronavirus.
Symptoms of dust pneumonia include high fever, chest pain, difficulty in breathing, and coughing. People who had dust pneumonia often died.
Anyone who is worried should look out for cough, sore throat, high temperature, feeling tired, and difficulty breathing. Anyone who is worried should look out for cough.
And of course, what can possibly trigger that? So let's get into this real quick.
Not anymore. To become
consider checking out. I know a lot of you want me to cover it. I did a video on it. A lot of you probably didn't see it because YouTube took it down within an hour of me uploading it, saying that it was dangerous. What I was saying was dangerous, which is just an absolute joke, which shows you just more and more that people such as myself are speaking the truth here, and they don't want you to know that. I want to cover what I call the My Sharona virus, without saying the word to trigger the algorithm so the video doesn't get taken down. I'm just going to call it the Sharona virus, or you can call it COVID-19, whatever you want to call it. Now, everybody has a take on this, and if it's real, if it's not. After researching this for weeks, after just doing as much as I possibly could to figure out what was going on without speculating, and again, obviously you could say what I'm saying is speculation. This is just my take now. This is how I fully feel about it. I know people think that nothing is happening, even though we see all these people in these masks all around the world, around the country, obviously caused from fear. This is why, they see it. It's monkey see, monkey do, right? So there are people who believe that it's 100% not even a real thing, but I believe that the COVID-19 isn't real, but I do believe that this has everything to do with the 5G technology. Now, it's not a coincidence that Wuhan just rolled out this 5G technology, and this is where it started to happen, and all these people were having immune problems, because one of the things that I've talked about with 5G is the dangers it's going to cause on people's bodies. It's going to be like living in a microwave. We've all been saying, we've all been warning people about it. Now, what better way to come in and be able to cover this up with all of a sudden everybody getting sick, having respiratory issues, people fainting, people's bodies, temperatures heating up, their core inside their bodies heating up? What better way to deflect off of it? Because people would say, well, what is changing? Why is everybody getting sick? What's going on? They go, it's the 5G, get the 5G down. Instead, they can blame it on something like the coronavirus. It is not, or the coronavirus. It is not something that is new. This thing has existed for a long time. You can even see on the sides of bottles like Lysol that it's supposed to combat the coronavirus. So why are these people spraying themselves with Lysol then? Covering their homes with Lysol? And of course, CNN and these other scam artists have to come out and say, well, it's true, Lysol does say that it can kill the coronavirus, but I mean, it's different when it's in the body, you know, they're just deflecting, because they can't stop people's people themselves taking all the information they have and looking into things and being real journalists themselves, or whatever they want to call themselves, investigators, or just finding out truth on their own, because people aren't buying into the mainstream media's crap anymore. So I'm sure you've seen the predictive programming. This is old. A lot of people posted this on my website when it first came out. The Eyes of Darkness, which even has predictive programming in there about the Wuhan 400 and this disease. Again, Wuhan, this is where it supposedly began and spread, but this is one of the places where the 5G towers went up. I covered even years ago, they had this huge disc, which is right outside of Wuhan. It almost looks like CERN in a sense. It's a huge satellite that they claimed they were going to use to contact aliens and stuff like that. Right? This is the crap that they put out there so people go, ooh, ah, because they would never think that this type of technology is dangerous. We've seen people go in front of Congress before talking about 5G with no answers as to how it will affect people's safety. This is how they're going to cover for it. And it works in so many more ways than people realize. This isn't just about, well, this is how they'll cover for 5G. Right? People are just going to start getting sick because they're going to have respiratory problems from the waves that are coming out of these 5G towers. So we'll just tell them it's the virus. And then what's going to happen? This is how the Hegelian dialect works, because they're going to be able to work in other gimmicks. Problem, reaction, solution, right? The problem is they'll tell you the COVID-19, and really it's the 5G towers. People are going to react. Everybody's panicking all around the country because of the fear prop that they're putting out there. And what's the solution they're going to come in with? Somebody's going to create the what? The shot, the vaccine. Someone's going to create it. And then people are going to line up for it, and it's going to become mandatory. So this is a way they're going to get everybody mandatorily to go and sign up and get this vaccine, even though they don't even realize that the coronavirus is pretty much, I mean, it's a joke. That the shots aren't even going to cure anything. They're just going to get people sicker, just like the flu shot. And this is what we've seen go on. We've seen the market crash, right? Blaming it on Corona. Then we saw markets skyrocket up in other countries because rumors are coming out that they've developed the vaccine before, so much faster than expected. And now they're testing it on humans. And the market goes back up, right? And we're even seeing in China that they're destroying what? Currency, because they're saying people are getting sick from the currency, transferring the currency to one another. So they're destroying currency. This is another agenda, right? To have the electronic currency to be the currency, one world currency. And this is another thing that they're able to push. So look at all the agendas being pushed and wrapped around this, right? Being able to completely shadow the dangers of 5G, because everyone's just going to believe it's this outbreak because they've been sat through predictive programming for movies like Outbreak, quarantine type movies. How many have we seen over the years, month after month, just like the alien invasion crap, right? That's to desensitize people and to prepare them for this stuff so they believe it. Oh my gosh, this disease just came out of thin air. Suddenly the whole world has it. It's like saying it's the same propaganda we hear with the flu, right? And all these people are just dying, and that stuff's not true. But the fact that people are having these reactions, and collapsing on the spot and stuff like that. Some people don't believe that that's legit or not, but that is the effect that 5G is going to have on people in their respiratory system. These waves are not natural. These waves are not, we're not supposed to be living with this type of crap going on in our, in our, what do you call it, our airspace. It's like getting zapped. Your body temperatures are going to be firing on all different cylinders. So that's fully what I believe that this is for. We saw with the Super Bowl, they really were pushing the 5G that day as if here it is, it's here now, get ready, 2020, right? We've heard Trump talk about how it's mandatory to beat other countries to race them to get the best 5G technology before everybody else. And we see all these other countries who, started off like Wuhan with pretty much openly saying, "Oh, we've got the 5G towers up and everything's wonderful." And then these are the things, the side effects that come of it. And then what do? They just put a little ribbon on it and they go, "Well, we're just going to tell everybody that it's this." And everybody's just going to go, "Oh my gosh, what are we going to do? We're all going to get sick. We're going to die." Well, you are going to get sick. And they're going to keep blaming it on this disease, and they're going to keep telling you to go get vaccinated, and then they're going to make vaccinations mandatory. And guess what? All the while, these towers are getting put up in your towns, my town, everybody's town, and there's nothing that we can do about it. Nothing. Because people won't buy it. You know why? Because they need to download their music a little bit quicker. They want their internet speeds to be faster. That's the society that we live in 2020.
Difficulty breathing. Sore throat, high temperature, feeling tired.
Breathing becomes harder when there's a lot of fine dust in the air. Adding to the misery is wearing a face mask all the time, knowing some of the particles will still get into the body because no consumer face mask is 100% dust-proof. Experts say these particles are so fine that once they pass through our airways, they get stuck in our lungs. And that's a big problem, especially for teenagers, because the residue hampers their lungs' development. Doctors say while there is no medicine guaranteed to counter the effects of fine dust particles such as breathing difficulties, it does help to stay hydrated. Experts say staying indoors is best, but if you must head outside, they recommend wearing a face mask and drinking hot water after returning home. Along with our lungs, our eyes are also exposed to fine dust every day. Protecting eyes from dust particles is tricky because there is no mask. Doctors recommend the following.
When fine dust concentrations are high, I recommend refraining from wearing contact lenses, and it's a good idea to use eye drops more often to wash the dust particles out of the eyes.
Health experts say that with more studies to be done on the negative effects of fine dust on our bodies, people should follow doctor recommendations in the meantime.
So let me break it down in layman terms for you. So it states in Ezekiel 38 that the destroyer is coming. That is God's anger. And basically this is a big, huge, fiery planet emitting red iron oxide into our atmosphere. We are breathing that in, and it is causing dust pneumonia and eventually sepsis, a total body shutdown. It is causing hemochromatosis, which is an iron overload. That's why diabetes have gone sky high. Anyways, basically, if you're not wearing a mask, and I'm talking about a full mask, you ain't got something to get the dust out of your house. If you running track and everything, you could just drop dead right now. There is no cure for this. This is the end time pestilence that God is using to destroy the nations.
I got the dust pneumonia, pneumonia in my lungs. I got the dust pneumonia, ooh, pneumonia in my lungs. And I'm gonna sing ya, ooh, a dust pneumonia song.
Health conditions from the Dust Bowl era was dust pneumonia. What was dust pneumonia? What methods did Dust Bowl residents use to try and combat the encroaching dust? During the 1930s, when the Great Plains region was being plagued by a drought and ravaged by dust storms, a new physical ailment emerged. It was known as dust pneumonia, and it was caused by breathing in dust from the air. Dirt would fill the lungs and cause coughing, tightness of the chest, labored breathing, and shortness of breath. Children and the elderly were affected the most, with deaths being common. Many were hospitalized because of this condition, but it is difficult to tell exact numbers because medical records from the era were either not kept or not well preserved. Those who lived in the Dust Bowl tried many different methods to combat the dust and keep themselves healthy. Parents would have their children sleep with sheets over their beds, like tents, to reduce the amount of dust they inhaled during their sleep. Dust masks and wet cloths over the mouth were other methods that some used to try and prevent dust inhalation. Additionally, goggles were sometimes worn to keep blowing dust out of the eyes. Housewives made many efforts to keep the dirt and dust out of the home. Sometimes these activities were as simple as constantly sweeping the floors. Other methods were more significant, such as tacking bed sheets in front of the doors and windows, wetting them down in an effort to keep out as much dust as possible. They also used strips of cloth soaked in a paste made of flour and water to insulate the outer edges of windows, trying to seal them shut. While humans could take these measures, animals were not so lucky. Cattle and other livestock had little shelter and nowhere to run from the dust storms. Many families were forced to watch helplessly as their animals died from dust inhalation. No livestock meant no meat, eggs, milk, or other dairy products, which only added more hardship to their lives. The dust was everywhere. Residents of the Dust Bowl region lived in it, breathed it, slept in it, and even ate it. Many Dust Bowl survivors testify that they could feel the gritty dirt in their food. There was no escaping it. The measures mentioned above helped reduce the dust some, but it was a constant presence in their lives.
Directly from an infected person or a contaminated surface. You can then catch the virus if you touch your face with your hands, something we do about 15 times an hour. The best line of defense is to wash your hands frequently with soap and water. Also, carry a hand sanitizer, tissues, wash your hands before you eat, and be careful in public places about touching surfaces and then touching your face. The UK has strong public health systems, and authorities are confident they can cope with a large disease outbreak. But what experts really fear is the virus taking hold in the megacities of Africa and Asia, where health systems are weak, people live close to each other, and sanitation is poor. Here, a large epidemic would be impossible to control.
That didn't stop officers from putting the 11-year-old in handcuffs, placing him in the back of the squad car, and hauling him off. And that's your son screaming.
Yeah, talking about my help me.
The next day, all charges were dismissed. Taye and his mother are now pursuing legal action against DPD, accusing officers of using excessive force.
I had a panic attack because they kept trying to accuse me of something I didn't do. They kept trying to make me feel on myself, and to talk about, like, I told him I didn't do it.
What is I'm under arrest for? Hey, you want to help me, or? Yes. What is I'm under arrest for? Hey.
Just relax, dude.
Hold on, bud. What is I'm under arrest for?
Just relax, dude. Look, if you resist, it's going to be a problem. Stop resisting, and you're going to be a problem. Just relax.
What is I'm under arrest for? No, you're gonna have to do it. Longer.
Just relax, dude.
What's he do? What did I do?
Yeah, that's panhandling, and he's been having people buy shit for him over in the Walgreens. Relax, just try to resist and relax. Relax.
But this shit is tight.
Buy stuff for him? Why did you gotta get this far? Here.
His feet. Alright, let me up, bud. We max the train child. Huh? We max the train child. Just hold on. Yeah, I know. Let's just down. I know. We're hurting right now. I can't fucking breathe, bro.
Okay. So what's going on with you?
My daughter and son came home saying that this man grabbed him and choked him. I came around her and asked him, I said, why did you put your hands on my son? He said, oh, he threw some paper. I said, and I told him to pick it up. He said my son didn't pick it up. He defined him, so that's why he did it, instead of following him home. He said, but y'all don't even live here. It doesn't matter where we live. You don't have the right to grab and choke nobody's son.
Okay.
Nobody. So I have a problem with that. My son is 7 years old. You don't have the right to grab him, choke him behind no paper that he threw. What you should have done, because we have been living here for years, so you know that my house is a door in between yours. You could have came to me. Don't put your hands on my son.
All right. Well, why don't you teach your son not to litter?
I didn't. You can't prove to me that my son littered. But it doesn't matter if he did or didn't. It doesn't give him the right to put his hands on it.
Why not?
Because he don't. It don't. What you mean?
I'm just asking.
Because he don't.
Huh?
He don't. He's not his parent. He's not his parent.
Okay.
Why
Why are you yelling at me?
Because why would you ask me? Why don't I teach him? You don't know what I teach him.
Okay.
And you don't. Your kids don't mean that they go by your rules when they're not in
Why
your
are you yelling at me?
Because you just pissed me off telling me what I teach my kids and what I don't.
If you keep yelling at me, you're going to piss me off and I'm going to take you to jail.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. You're under arrest. Get up! Get on the ground! Get on the ground now!
Yes, man. Put your arms behind your back. Put your arms behind your back. Ow! My arm. Get off me. I was just wondering if you were going to send anyone upstairs. Yes, I actually had a stroke just. Turn over! Turn over!
Yes.
Do not resist! Do not resist! Stop resisting! Stop resisting!
Please stop resisting.
Stop resisting!
Just stop, man.
Stop resisting! Stop! Put your arms behind your back! Let me get off!
Let's let her stand up.
Therefore, you shall serve your enemies, whom the Lord will send against you in hunger, and thirst, and nakedness, in need of everything, and he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you. The Lord will bring a nation against you from afar, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flies, a nation whose language you will not understand. A nation of fierce countenance, which does not respect the elderly, nor show favor to the young, which does not respect the elderly, nor show favor to the young, which does not respect the elderly, nor show favor to the young.
Man, if you don't get up there closer, man, go. Let's get footage, man. You bullshit, man. Y'all get real footage with this shit. She just slammed the other way. She didn't know about it. Come on, that's
Oh my freaking God!
which does not respect the elderly nor show favor to the young.
Police brutality at its finest right here.
Oh, look! We can't keep doing that!
Good evening. A child just 6 years old is placed in handcuffs by police.
The African Canadian Legal Clinic is now filing numerous complaints against the school board and the police, including human rights complaints.
Had she not been an African Canadian child, I strongly believe this would not have happened.
Police are reviewing the incident, but the legal clinic wants answers and accountability.
An apology, it's a start and only a start. But I think all that are involved must account for these actions, this abusive action.
The child's mother says her daughter is now traumatized and is scared of police, and she has moved her to a different school.
Oh my God!
Investigators say the 6-year-old and an 8-year-old were both taken into custody yesterday on unrelated charges. Now, Orlando police are launching an internal investigation.
The department's policy states that in order to arrest a child under the age of 12, you must have a watch commander's approval. And police tell us that did not happen in this case.
I turn my TV with this remote.
Kaya Roll is like most little girls. She loves pink and has a cheery outlook on life.
Come sit down.
But after what her grandmother says happened on Thursday, the bubbly 6-year-old has little room to focus on school after she got a call from a school resource officer saying Kaya was arrested.
They say, what do you mean she was arrested? Say there was an incident and she kicked somebody and she's being charged and she's on her way.
The first grader handcuffed and carted off, where the grandmother says she was fingerprinted and even had a mugshot taken.
No 6-year-old child should be able to tell somebody that they had handcuffs on them and they were riding in the back of a police car and taken to a juvenile detention center to be fingerprinted, mugshot.
Kaya equally as upset.
Don't cry. No, I'm good.
But happy to be home.
I felt sad that my grandma was sad. And I really missed her.
Get out! Stop resisting! Stop! Get off of him! There's a kid! Stop resisting! Get out! Stop resisting! Get out! Can you get off of him? It's a kid! It's a kid! It's a kid! It's a goddamn kid! Turn around! Go! Around! Kid! Jaywalking! Turn around! Turn around! Turn around! Leave him alone! Stay on the ground! Sit right there! Shoot yourself! Kid! Stay on the ground! The goddamn kid! That's a kid! Are you serious? It's a kid! He didn't do nothing wrong! That is a child! That is a child! That is a child that was jaywalking right here! He don't have to do that to him! That is a child! What's wrong with y'all? That's a child! That's a kid! What's wrong with y'all? My mama's? Nope. Please, just anywhere he says to do in the home, I'll do anything!
Nope.
Collins! Collins, wait! Collins!
I will stop when you get in. Stay there. Stay there. Stop. Do not spit on me.
I thought it was very terrible. They shouldn't have did that man like that. He was begging to please don't take me. And if I had known that they were gonna take, I would have said something. I thought they were just talking, but they usually do.
I don't want to go to the police car.
You don't want to?
No, please.
You have to.
No, please.
Okay, she's gonna have to come with us now.
Okay, Kai. You
Stand
gotta
up.
go with them, baby girl.
Stand up. Okay, come over here.
What are those for?
It's for you.
Keep your hands, okay? Come over here, honey.
No.
It's not gonna hurt.
No.
Okay,
No, I don't want to come on. No. I don't want to go to the police car.
You don't want to?
No, please.
You have to.
No, please. Give me a second chance. No. Please. Please. Please.
A nation of fierce countenance, which does not respect the elderly nor show favor to the young.
There are new accusations that police used excessive force.
This time it is a St. Paul officer accused of being too rough with a 15-year-old boy. The arrest was captured on cell phone video. It happened Sunday afternoon at Ryan Park in the Frogtown neighborhood. That is where members of a nearby church held their annual picnic. You can see an officer restraining a boy who's on the ground and a small crowd around them yelling.
Put his hands behind his back.
Alex Weston not only witnessed the arrest of the 15-year-old boy, he pulled out his cell phone and recorded video.
Well, as soon as I was close, I recognized him. He's a member of our church. He's someone I know. He's someone my kids have played with. You know, a good kid.
Weston says when the 11-year-old brother of the teenager got into a fight with some other children at the picnic, someone called the police. Several church members told Weston they heard the police officer insult the two boys' mother by calling her overweight and accusing her of being a bad parent. They say that's when the 15-year-old spoke up in his mother's defense.
He was calling her fat and he was being disrespectful, and I told him don't say that to her.
They were insisting that the boy who was being arrested had done nothing, that the boy had started shouting at the police officer after the police officer insulted his mother in a very rude and profanity-laced way, and that for that the officer grabbed the boy and threw him to the ground.
The student tells me he got into a fight with another student because that kid wouldn't give him back his prescription sports goggles. J.C. Hughes is suspended today due to that fight, but it's what happened afterwards that has him speaking out. 2 Round Rock school resource officers were called by an administrator to help break up the fight. In this cell phone video shot by another student, you see the officers trying to calm Hughes down. But when the 14-year-old puts his hand on one of the officers, the cop grabs him by the throat and takes him to the floor.
I was mad because he kept pushing me and touching me, and I wasn't like physically doing anything to him either. And that's the point where I was like, can you leave me alone? And that's when he took me.
This incident is currently under review by the police department staff.
Grand Rapids, Michigan, officers pointing their guns at an 11-year-old girl, handcuffing her as she screamed for her mother to help.
You're not going to jail or anything. Stop yelling.
Those screams from 11-year-old Honesty Hodges. The incident, captured on the officer's body cam, began when the elementary school student, her mother, and aunt were leaving a home in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Police incorrectly believed the suspect, sought in an attempted murder case, was hiding inside.
Stop yelling.
Weapons drawn, the girl, terrified, starts crying as the officer cuffs her.
I didn't do anything wrong. I've never been in trouble by the Grand Rapids police.
Her mother demanding answers.
You got us all into cop cars, have my child scared. Like, why? For what?
For the first time, 76-year-old grandmother Rena Mellerson, who was thrown to the ground by a Baltimore County police officer last week, is speaking about the incident captured in this viral video.
Do you trust police in Baltimore County where you live?
For me to see the lady that raised me thrown to the ground, I would never do anything like that to my grandmother. And I would not want anything like that to happen to anybody else's grandmother. I'm not a criminal. My mother's not a criminal. My daughter's not a criminal. One thing they can't say, well, we checked their background and they had this, that, and the other. You won't do it to this family.
Lady can barely walk and you slam her like that.
The family alleges the officer barged into the house in Gwynn Oak and deployed pepper spray in the home, traumatizing the grandchildren.
I didn't know what they did.
Before another officer responded and threw Ms. Mellerson to the ground.
Chatsworth, we're 10-4. I'm out with them.
Stand up. Stand up. Stand up. Stand up.
Stop.
It's on your chest, Terry.
Go pull. It's okay.
Ma'am, you're gonna have to get in there. Wait a momento. You're gonna have to get in here. Once you get in here, you can talk to them, okay? Yes, ma'am.
تعي لهون.
شو مخليني اجرب؟ لا تخافي، هي اجراء قانوني. هسه احنا بنروح لعندك على الفرع هون. What do you want?
Hey, ma'am. We'll take her to jail. You need to ask her politely to just sit in the...
Yeah, she will, but please, she's an old lady.
Oh, I get it, but you can't have knives, sir. You...
Okay,
Just tell her to sit down and we'll talk to her.
Yeah, where?
Yeah, try to translate to her to sit in the car, ma'am, because we don't want to pick her up or force her.
ما يعملوا لنا مشكلة يفضحونا. أبوي نايم. وكامل هسه بيجي لعندك. She's mother-in-law Solomon Donay. If you know him, you know we are good people. Please.
Let's give him high.
Okay. Let's sit over here.
I'm scared for her. She have a heart problem. Please.
I'm suggesting to you that the failure to talk about race, the failure to talk about racism and inequality on the basis of color, feeds the denial that is already far too prevalent among the white community. And having been white all of my life, I've been surrounded by that denial for a very long time.
Deuteronomy 28.
A few years back,
And it
white
shall come to
Americans were asked,
pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command thee this day, that the Lord thy God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on thee, and overtake thee, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. Blessed shalt thou be in the city, and blessed shalt thou be in the field. Blessed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy ground, and the fruit of thy cattle, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Blessed shall be thy basket, and thy store. Blessed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and blessed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall cause thine enemies that rise up against thee to be smitten before thy face. They shall come out against thee one way, and flee before thee 7 ways. The Lord shall command the blessing upon thee in thy storehouses, and in all that thou settest thine hand unto,
and he shall bless thee in the land which the Lord thy God giveth thee. The Lord shall establish thee an holy people unto himself, as he hath sworn unto thee, if thou shalt keep the commandments of the Lord thy God, and walk in his ways. And all people of the earth shall see that thou art called by the name of the Lord, and they shall be afraid of thee. And the Lord shall make thee plenteous in goods, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy ground, in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers to give thee. The Lord shall open unto thee his good treasure, the heaven to give the rain unto thy land in his season, and to bless all the work of thine hand. And thou shalt lend unto many nations, and thou shalt not borrow. And the Lord shall make thee the head, and not the tail, and thou shalt be above only, and thou shalt not be beneath, if that thou hearken unto the commandments of the Lord thy God, which I command thee this day, to observe and to do them. And thou shalt not go aside from any of the words which I command thee this day, to the right hand or to the left, to go after other gods to serve them. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee, and overtake thee. Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body, and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kine, and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. The Lord shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, in all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me. The Lord shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land, whither thou goest to possess it. The Lord shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with a sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. The Lord shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee, until thou be destroyed. The Lord shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shalt be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. The Lord will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. The Lord shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness. And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her. Thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof. Thine ox shall be slain before thine eyes, and thou shalt not eat thereof. Thine ass shall be violently taken away from before thy face, and shall not be restored to thee. Thy sheep shall be given unto thine enemies, and thou shalt have none to rescue them. Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look, and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand. The fruit of thy land and all thy labours shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up, and thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always, so that thou shalt be mad for the sight of thine eyes, which thou shalt see. The Lord shall smite thee in the knees, and in the legs, with a sore botch that cannot be healed, from the sole of thy foot unto the top of thy head. The Lord shall bring thee, and thy king which thou shalt set over thee, unto a nation which neither thou nor thy fathers have known. And there shalt thou serve other gods, wood and stone. and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations whither the Lord shall lead thee. Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shalt gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it. Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine, nor gather the grapes, for the worms shall eat them. Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all thy coasts, but thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit. Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity. All thy trees and fruit of thy land shall the locusts consume. The stranger that is within thee shall get up above thee very high, and thou shalt come down very low. He shall lend to thee, and thou shalt not lend to him. He shall be the head, and thou shalt be the tail. Moreover, all these curses shall come upon thee, and shall pursue thee, and overtake thee, till thou be destroyed, because thou hearkenest not unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which he commanded thee. And they shall be upon thee for a sign, and for a wonder, and upon thy seed for ever. Because thou servest not the Lord thy God with joyfulness, and with gladness of heart, for the abundance of all things. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemies which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger, and in thirst, and in nakedness, and in want of all things. And he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, a nation of fierce countenance, which shall not regard the person of the old, nor show favor to the young. And he shall eat the fruit of thy cattle, and the fruit of thy land, until thou be destroyed, which also shall not leave thee either corn, wine, or oil, or the increase of thy kine, or flocks of thy sheep, until he have destroyed thee. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates, until thy high and fenced walls come down, wherein thou trustedst, throughout all thy land. And he shall besiege thee in all thy gates throughout all thy land, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee, in the siege, and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. So that the man that is tender among you, and very delicate, his eyes shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege, and in the straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. The tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear. For she shall eat them for want of all things secretly in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in thy gates. If thou wilt not observe to do all the words of this law that are written in this book, that thou mayest fear this glorious and fearful name, the Lord thy God, then the Lord will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sicknesses, and of long continuance. Moreover, he will bring upon thee all the diseases of Egypt, which thou wast afraid of, and they shall cleave unto thee. Also every sickness and every plague, which is not written in the book of this law, them will the Lord bring upon thee, until thou be destroyed. And ye shall be left few in number, whereas ye were as the stars of heaven for multitude, because thou wouldest not obey the voice of the Lord thy God. And it shall come to pass, that as the Lord rejoiced over you to do you good, and to multiply you, so the Lord will rejoice over you to destroy you, and to bring you to naught, and ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone. And among these nations shalt thou find no ease, neither shall the sole of thy foot have rest. But the Lord shall give thee there a trembling heart, and failing of eyes, and sorrow of mind. And thy life shall hang in doubt before thee, and thou shalt fear day and night, and shalt have none assurance of thy life. In the morning thou shalt say, Would God it were even, and at even thou shalt say, Would God it were morning, for the fear of thine heart wherewith thou shalt fear, and for the sight of thine eyes which thou shalt see. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you. Deuteronomy 29. These are the words of the covenant, which the Lord commanded Moses to make with the children of Israel, in the land of Moab, beside the covenant which he made with them in Horeb. And Moses called unto all Israel, and said unto them, Ye have seen all that the Lord did before your eyes in the land of Egypt unto Pharaoh, and unto all his servants, and unto all his land, the great temptations which thine eyes have seen, the signs, and those great miracles. Yet the Lord hath not given you an heart to perceive, and eyes to see, and ears to hear, unto this day. I have led you 40 years in the wilderness. Your clothes are not waxen old upon you, and thy shoe is not waxen old upon thy foot. Ye have not eaten bread, neither have ye drunk wine or strong drink, that ye might know that I am the Lord your God. And when ye came unto this place, Sihon the king of Heshbon, and Og the king of Bashan, came out against us unto battle, and we smote them. And we took their land, and gave it for an inheritance unto the Reubenites, and to the Gadites, and to the half-tribe of Manasseh. Keep therefore the words of this covenant, and do them, that ye may prosper in all that ye do. Ye stand this day, all of you, before the Lord your God, your captains of your tribes, your elders, and your officers, with all the men of Israel, your little ones, your wives, and thy stranger that is in thy camp, from the hewer of thy wood unto the drawer of thy water, that thou shouldest enter into covenant with the Lord thy God, and into his oath, which the Lord thy God maketh with thee this day, that he may establish thee today for a people unto himself, and that he may be unto thee a God, as he hath said unto thee, and as he hath sworn unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob. Neither with you only do I make this covenant and this oath, but with him that standeth here with us this day before the Lord our God, and also with him that is not here with us this day. For ye know how we have dwelt in the land of Egypt, and how we came through the nations which ye passed by. And ye have seen their abominations, and their idols, wood and stone, silver and gold, which were among them, lest there should be among you man or woman or family or tribe, whose heart turneth away this day from the Lord our God, to go and serve the gods of these nations, lest there should be among you a root that beareth gall and wormwood. And it come to pass, when he heareth the words of this curse, that he bless himself in his heart, saying, I shall have peace, though I walk in the imagination of mine heart, to add drunkenness to thirst. The Lord will not spare him, but then the anger of the Lord in his jealousy shall smoke against that man, and all the curses that are written in this book shall lie upon him. And the Lord shall blot out his name from under heaven. And the Lord shall separate him unto evil out of all the tribes of Israel, according to all the curses of the covenant that are written in this book of the law, so that the generation to come of your children that shall rise up after you, and the stranger that shall come from a far land, shall say, when they see the plagues of that land, and the sicknesses which the Lord hath laid upon it, and that the whole land thereof is brimstone and salt and burning, that it is not sown, nor beareth, nor any grass groweth therein, like the overthrow of Sodom and Gomorrah, Admah and Zeboim, which the Lord overthrew in his anger and in his wrath. Even all nations shall say, Wherefore hath the Lord done thus unto this land? What meaneth the heat of this great anger? Then men shall say, Because they have forsaken the covenant of the Lord God of their fathers, which he made with them when he brought them forth out of the land of Egypt. For they went and served other gods, and worshipped them, gods whom they knew not, and whom he had not given unto them. And the anger of the Lord was kindled against this land, to bring upon it all the curses that are written in this book. And the Lord rooted them out of their land in anger, and in wrath, and in great indignation, and cast them into another land, as it is this day. The secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us, and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. Deuteronomy 30. And it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessing and the curse, which I have set before thee, and thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath driven thee, and shalt return unto the Lord thy God, and shalt obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day, thou and thy children, with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, that then the Lord thy God will turn thy captivity, and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. If any of thine be driven out unto the utmost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy God gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good, and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thine heart, and the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. And the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. And thou shalt return and obey the voice of the Lord, and do all his commandments which I command thee this day. And the Lord thy God will make thee plenteous in every work of thine hand, in the fruit of thy body, and in the fruit of thy cattle, and in the fruit of thy land for good. For the Lord will again rejoice over thee for good, as he rejoiced over thy fathers. If thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law, and if thou turn unto the Lord thy God with all thine heart, and with all thy soul, for this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. It is not in heaven, that thou shouldst say, Who shall go up for us to heaven, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldst say, Who shall go over the sea for us, and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it? But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth, and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. See, I have set before thee this day life and good, and death and evil. In that I command thee this day to love the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, and to keep his commandments and his statutes and his judgments, that thou mayest live and multiply. And the Lord thy God shall bless thee in the land whither thou goest to possess it. But if thine heart turn away, so that thou wilt not hear, but shalt be drawn away, and worship other gods, and serve them, I denounce unto you this day, that ye shall surely perish, and that ye shall not prolong your days upon the land whither thou passest over Jordan to go to possess it. I call heaven and earth to record this day against you, that I have set before you life and death, blessing and cursing. Therefore, choose life, that both thou and thy seed may live, that thou mayest love the Lord thy God, and that thou mayest obey his voice, and that thou mayest cleave unto him. For he is thy life, and the length of thy days, that thou mayest dwell in the land which the Lord sware unto thy fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Jacob, to give them.
Jesus is not Lord. Lord definition equals God. There is only one God. There is only one Lord. Mark 12:29, Jesus answered him and said, this is your first commandment. Hear, O Israel. Did he say Gentiles? Did he say the world who believe in multiple gods and many idols and worship Jesus Christ? He wasn't talking to them. He said, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one God, one Lord. Lord definition equals God. Biblical definition. Matthew 4:10. Then said Jesus unto him, for it is written, you shall worship the Lord thy God. Lord equals what? Thy God. And him only. And who? And him only. You know, say Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai. And him only. They can hear me. Shalt thou serve. Why y'all serving Christ? Why are you serving Christ when Christ said only serve God? Guess what? I'm known around the whole world. Every single camp around the world know me. And they know the truth that I'm preaching. They can't say shit about what I'm saying because they know it's the truth, and they lying to you, telling you to go through the Son when the Son is saying what? Go to the Father, only serve him. He is your God. The first commandment is that Lord, which is my God and your God, this is the one we are supposed to be serving, not him. He said, I did not come to be served or worshipped. Matthew 22:37. Jesus said unto him, you shall love the Lord thy God with all your heart. And how you got room for Jesus? If all your heart is on God, and with all your soul and with all your mind. If your mind is only on the one God of Israel, why are you saying Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, meaning Christ with God, or God in Christ? That's blaspheming God's holy name. Right. Matthew 11:25. At that time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O God, Lord of heavens and earth. Lord of heavens and earth. They said Jesus came in the flesh. It's a lie. It's a pagan infiltration. It's a lie. Because this Jesus is saying totally everything different from what the Christians believe. There is a God, and he is the God of the heavens and the earth. You pray to your Lord and said, our God which is in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Your name is sacred. You know, your will be done, God, not Jesus Christ. Your kingdom is coming, not Christ is coming. There is no return of Christ. And I say that 3 times. There is no return of Christ. How can there be? The Lord is returning. There's only one God. And God is going to redeem his people. Keep going. Luke 1:16. And many of the children of Israel, Jesus shall Jesus turn to the Lord their God. Again, and many of the children of Israel shall he turn, which is Jesus, to the Lord their God. Jesus is never going to say, I am the Lord of the world. If you heard that somewhere, that's blasphemy. It is a pagan infiltration. Because then he will be a liar, saying 2 different things, contradicting himself strongly. He's telling you there is only one God, and that God is my God and your God, and that you are to serve that only God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Worship him alone. That's what we're reading. Unless y'all can't read all of a sudden. Luke 1:16. And many of the children of Israel he did what? Turn to the Lord their God. Matthew 23:39. For I tell you, you will not see me again, which means you ain't going to see him, until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Not in the name of Jesus, in the name of the Most High God of Israel. So tell me, why are they adding Jesus? Why are they worshiping Jesus as a dynamic duo like Batman and Robin with God? Luke 1:68, blessed be the Lord God of Israel, says Christ, for he has visited and redeemed his people. What? You mean Christ coming back? No, God redeemed his people when God came back and visited this earth. Future tense. Joel 2:27, and you shall know, says God, that I am in the midst of Israel. You mean America. Israel. And that I am the Lord your God, and no one else. Concurring with what? Jesus is concurring with what God said in the Old Testament, right? You only got one God, and that one God is your Lord. And there is only one Lord. Meaning, Jesus cannot be Lord. How did you get deceived? By the pagan infiltration added to the Bible, when the Bible itself said they would change the law and the priesthood. To do what? To deceive you. Written right in the scriptures. Leviticus 24:16. Anyone then who blasphemes the name of the Lord is to be killed, murdered, put to death. Blaspheming, saying there is another Lord, and that he is Lord and Savior. You blaspheming God's holy name every single day, like he said the Gentiles do. The entire assembly must be stoned. Must stone them, whether they be foreign or native born. When they blaspheme the name, they are to be put to death. And y'all think y'all gonna call on the name of Jesus when the end comes? Y'all gonna be put to death. Keep going. Ezekiel 39:22. So the house of Israel, you mean the world, you mean the Gentiles? No, the house of Israel shall know that I am the Lord their God. From this day on, there cannot be Lord Jesus. When people say the Lord now, they thinking of Jesus. They all deceived. They all in that wide gate. All 3.4 billion of them going to hell. Blaspheming God's holy name. Let's do a recap. Jesus states in Luke 1:16, Jesus turned to the children of Israel. He turned the children of Israel to the Most High God. Jesus did what? Turned the children of Israel to the Most High God. You mean to himself. See how they deceive? Mark 12:29. Jesus states that there is only one Lord, and that is the God of Israel. How can it be two? When you say Jesus is Lord, you blaspheme, and you making two. Y'all can't count. See how they confound it when I come on the scene? That's why all the camps is quiet. Matthew 4:10. That you only serve and worship the one God, your Lord alone, and no one else. Why do you keep adding Jesus? Matthew 22:37. Jesus states, you are to love the Lord God with all. How much? All your heart, soul, and mind. Then how do you have room to love Christ or anybody else? You don't got no room. All of y'all is deceived. The whole thing is about serving and worshiping God alone. That is the whole duty, the conclusion of mankind, is to worship none but God. Everybody, anybody doing anything different is going to hell. At Matthew 11:25, Jesus states that the Most High God is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. If He's Lord of the heavens and the earth, then how did Christ have a kingdom and some angels? Lies and deceit, huh? And people want to worship creation. I ain't saying people, Gentiles do. Black, white, yellow, green, and brown. If you're serving the Most High God alone, and you think you Gentile, go check your DNA. Really check your DNA and spit hard in that damn container, man. Because you might not be who you think you are. Matthew 23:39. Jesus stated, until you say blessed is he who comes in the name of God, you will never see me again. He didn't say I was returning. You got to check the word wizardry used here. All throughout the Bible, the pagans got everybody calling Jesus Lord, blaspheming the name of the Most High God of Israel. They're going to make everybody else say it.
Historical fact that's a lot more important than speculation about what a penguin would do to children. Here's the reality. The image of a white Jesus has been used to justify enslavement, conquest, colonialism, the genocide of indigenous peoples. There are literally millions of human beings whose lives have been snuffed out by people who conquered under the banner of a white God. That is a far more significant problem.
There's a counterfeit God, counterfeit Sabbath, counterfeit tribe. It don't matter, there's a counterfeit God, counterfeit Sabbath, counterfeit tribe. It don't matter, there's a counterfeit God, counterfeit Sabbath, counterfeit tribe. It don't matter. Christianity be lying, saying it don't matter. Mister, twisting the scripture. If it didn't matter, why did you change the picture? I don't mean the image, but the name, identity, killed, raped,
Isaiah 14.
killing spree. Jesus,
For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob, and will yet choose Israel, and set them in their own land. And the stranger shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob. And the people shall take them, and bring them to their place. And the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids. And they shall take them captives, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors. And it shall come to pass in the day that the Lord shall give thee rest from thy sorrow, and from thy fear, and from the hard bondage wherein thou wast made to serve, that thou shalt take up this proverb against the king of Babylon, and say, How hath the oppressor ceased? The golden city ceased. The Lord hath broken the staff of the wicked, and the scepter of the rulers. He who smote the people in wrath with a continual stroke, he that ruled the nations in anger, is persecuted, and none hindereth. The whole earth is at rest, and is quiet. They break forth into singing. Yea, the fir trees rejoice at thee, and the cedars of Lebanon, saying, Since thou art laid down, no feller is come up against us. Hell from beneath is moved for thee to meet thee at thy coming. It stirreth up the dead for thee, even all the chief ones of the earth. It hath raised up from their thrones all the kings of the nations. All they shall speak and say unto thee, Art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vials. The worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? For thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven, I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High. Yet thou shalt be brought down to hell, to the sides of the pit. They that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee, and consider thee, saying, Is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms? That made the world as a wilderness, and destroyed the cities thereof, that opened not the house of his prisoners? All the kings of the nations, even all of them, lie in glory, every one in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Thou shalt not be joined with them in burial, because thou hast destroyed thy land, and slain thy people. The seed of evildoers shall never be renowned. Prepare slaughter for his children for the iniquity of their fathers, that they do not rise nor possess the land, nor fill the face of the world with cities. For I will rise up against them, saith the Lord of hosts, and cut off from Babylon the name and remnant and son and nephew, saith the Lord. I will also make it a possession for the bittern, and pools of water, and I will sweep it with the besom of destruction, saith the Lord of hosts. The Lord of hosts hath sworn, saying, Surely as I have thought, so shall it come to pass, and as I have purposed, so shall it stand. That I will break the Assyrian in my land, and upon my mountains tread him under foot. Then shall his yoke depart from off them, and his burden depart from off their shoulders. This is the purpose that is purposed upon the whole earth, and this is the hand that is stretched out upon all the nations. For the Lord of hosts hath purposed, and who shall disannul it? And his hand is stretched out, and who shall turn it back? In the year that King Ahaz died was this burden. Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent. And the firstborn of the poor shall feed, and the needy shall lie down in safety. And I will kill thy root with famine, and he shall slay thy remnant. Howl, O gate, cry, O city, thou whole Palestina art dissolved. For there shall come from the north a smoke, and none shall be alone in his appointed times. What shall one then answer the messengers of the nation? That the Lord hath founded Zion, and the poor of his people shall trust in it.
You know, and then to make you believe that it's somehow true, you got to really listen to what Jesus is actually saying, not the pagan infiltration. Gentiles can only see falsehood, most of them. You're a rare Gentile, and that's why I say, James, you are one of a kind if you can see. You are one of a kind. And people think I'm saying empty words. I don't say empty words. When I say bless you, I mean it. Luke 1:68. Jesus states that the Most High God of Israel is the Redeemer of his people. Nobody else can redeem Israel except God. So Jesus is not coming back to save. Y'all got deceived by the pagan infiltration. 8, Joel 2:27. And they'll say this ain't the Bible, and it's right in there. They can go look up the scriptures themselves. I got it right here in big, bold, black and white letters, right? God says, I am the Lord your God, and no one else can be. Nobody else can be the Lord. There's only one God, said Jesus, and that's the first commandment. And you only serve and worship that God. Can hear now, huh? They don't want to hear. You know why? Because they want to sin. They're thinking they're going to get a free J-Pass, and God is going to destroy you. God said he's coming back to destroy all sinners off the land. Jesus states somewhere, and they said he stated in the Bible, that he's coming back to destroy all the sinners and those who commit iniquity and those who offend. That he's going to gather them and throw them straight in the fire. Then how the fuck did Jesus die for your sins? Y'all got deceived by the pagan infiltration of the Bible. Y'all love to believe in fairy tales.
In fierce fighting inside the Syrian city, Turkey is a member of NATO. Turkey has also been flirting with Russia. The Syrian army is backed by Russia. Now, over 1 million Syrian citizens have been displaced from their homes by the fighting since December. Turkey wants NATO to back their troops fighting in Syria against Russian-backed Syrian soldiers. Are you following this? Today, in a gambit to pressure NATO's European members, Turkey opened its border gates and told Syrian refugees to migrate to Europe. We have this report from Reuters.
The killing of at least 33 Turkish soldiers by Syria's military, the worst single loss for Turkish troops in decades, is drawing the NATO member deeper into crisis with Syria's main backer, Russia. It's also threatening a new crisis with Turkey's own allies. Fighting continued in Syria's Idlib region on Friday. Diplomatic channels remain open, including meetings between Turkish and Russian diplomats in Ankara attempting to de-escalate the situation, but Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan is also said to have told Russia's Vladimir Putin in a phone call Friday that all elements of Syria's military are considered targets and will be hit in retaliation. Turkey and Russia accuse each other of failing to adhere to past agreements they made to coordinate with each other's forces, agreements designed to avert such a catastrophe.
We have seen bombing of civilian targets.
NATO's General Secretary says the alliance stands in solidarity behind Turkey and is demanding that Russia and Syria end their offensive against the rebels Turkey supports. However, Turkey is pressuring its NATO allies as well. It's decided to reopen its border with the European Union to allow migrants and refugees, many from Syria, to cross into Europe once again. The move threatens to reignite the migrant crisis that swept Europe 5 years ago. Greek police are massing on the border in an attempt to stop the crossing. Turkey's also demanding what it calls actual support in Syria from the United States itself. Words from President Trump aren't enough, they say. Turkey and Russia became the dominant players in Syria after Trump's withdrawal left a power vacuum there. The war worsened dramatically afterwards. 1 million people have been displaced since December, possibly the worst humanitarian disaster of the 9-year conflict.
Edward Zoll is here with me. Edward, here we have another 1 million Syrians displaced from their homes since December in a war started by Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton on behalf of the Israeli Zionists, and a war continued by Donald Trump. And so we have Turkey, a NATO member, with troops inside Syria seeking to take control of a Syrian city. The Syrian troops are backed by Russia. Turkey is fighting the Russian-backed Syrian troops inside Syria, but Turkey is buying S-400s from Russia, but Turkey is a member of NATO, and now Turkey wants NATO to back Turkey, and it
just like a hotel. You're here for a minute, then you roll out. Kumbaya, 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 kumbaya. Kumbaya, don't leave me. Kumbaya, cause I'm needy. Kumbaya, cause I feel lost, like Simba before Rafiki. Satan on my back trying to beat me, from friends to even my relatives. I wanna sleep, have a sedative, but I know that there's work to do. Always work. Many are called and a few are chosen. Only few. So now I gotta move on my own now. The earth is just like a hotel. You're here for a minute, then you roll out. Quicker than taking your phone out. Only got one life to live, so tell me, who you gonna phone now? Kumbaya, 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 kumbaya.
Good morning, good afternoon, happy Sabbath, happy Sabbath. Okay, so we're looking at a very, 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 very convoluted subject, because there's a lot of misinformation, and there's a lot of lies, and there's a lot of, general stuff that goes with deception. But nevertheless, we're going to look at the Deuteronomy 28. Specifically, we're going to be looking at the curses. Now, because it's such you could go many ways with this topic here. By Yah's grace, all glory to the Most High Yah, I'm just going to go through the individual curses to a degree. But before that, I'm going to give a backdrop behind why things take place in terms of why the Most High can be a blessing, but then can also become an adversary. Woo, did I just say that? Don't get triggered. We're going to see the scriptures. So hopefully we'll all be on the same page before touching and going through the curses. Okay? So I just want to say first and foremost, all glory and all praises to the Most High Yah. It's a beautiful day over here. So, you know, it's nice. It's lovely. I hope everyone's having a blessed day so far. I know the American crowd are just waking up. I'm not sure about everyone else. Over here, it's midday. You know, about 3 hours left of the Sabbath. You know? So, shout out Vivian, Kimberly, Jules B, and everyone who's in the forum, Kanuri, Mary Jane, Tamiko, potentially. I think that's... Okay, there's quite a lot. I didn't see the chat feed because it was a bit slow for some reason. Okay, so everything's looking decent. I can see everything now. Okay. That's great. So in Alabama, it's 9:46. So it's quite early in Alabama. All right then, guys. What I'm going to do, as always, we're going to go through the slides. Going to do a bit of housekeeping by Yah's grace. So we're going to have the moderators in the forum just to make sure that everything's done decently and in order. You know, as per expectation, there's going to be trolls, probably Hasbara agents and whatnot. But let's just keep it, you know, set apart. Let's not entertain the trolls. But, you know, let's do things decently and in order, all times, in all ways, every day. Okay? So, shout out Nairi, Sturgis, Birmingham, MSD2. So, let's get into the next slide. Oh, I know some people have had some stressful weeks as well. I know some people have been going through hospital treatment, had losses potentially. So I just want to encourage you guys in whatever capacity, whatever kind of situation that you're going through, to have that unwavering faith like Job. You know what I like about Job? We read the book of Job, but Job didn't know a book was being written about him. So he's going through all them things, you know. And he never really lost the faith. You know, sometimes he murmured and complained and ventilated. But, you know, he said the Most High giveth, the Most High taketh away. Blessed be the name of the what? Exactly. So, irrespective of what's going on in your circumstances, in your life at the moment, financially, technologically, socially, domestically, and any other Lee, Bruce Lee, Jack, you know, whatever other Lee that's going on in your life, yeah, just you know, keep the faith and stay faithful, you know, because a lot of people that know a lot of stuff, and as see that Yah blessed Samson with strength, he disobeyed Yah, he lost his sight by the nations. So the Most High, you know, the nations came against him, you know, through the medium through Delilah, this, that, the other, cut off his locks, lost his strength, you know, put into a vulnerable state, lost his vision, or should I say he lost his sight, but when he repented, he found his vision. So we see this kind of people being blessed by the Most High, disobeying the Most High, having the consequence of that disobedience, generally being led to the goodness of repentance, and then finding their vision again. Now, when we read the book of Judges, it's pretty much a circle of repentance and rebellion, rebellion and repentance. Yeah, it's just a cyclical circle, 360, going round and round. Yeah, so we see the people turn from Yah. Then what does Yah do? He raises up judges from among the people. to deliver the people from the nations or their enemies, then what did the people do? They turn back to Yah. Then what do they do again? They apostatize. God sends judges to rescue the people. They have a period of peace under the judge, and then the people turn away from Yah. So it's like, you know, it was just obedience and disobedience, and then deliverer. Yeah. So we see kind of the ministry of Yahushua or Yeshua in the terms of being a savior, delivering the people from their sins. You know, when we look and study the history of the judges. Now, even when you look at Jonah, he was blessed. You know, he was chosen by the Most High. The Most High could have chose any other Israelite to deliver a message to the Ninevites, but he chose Jonah. And then what did Jonah do? He rebelled. And then what happened? There was a storm. Then the men on the boat didn't even really want to throw him over, you know. But they were left with no choice. What shall be done in the dry? Now we're saying, boy, if they do this where there's a lot of things that can camouflage and you know, hide this abominable act, what would they do where there's no enclosure? If they can do this where there is an enclosure? And he's saying, don't cry for me. He says, I'm alright, you know. I know the cost, you know. I'm a soldier. I knew this was the final call. But he's saying, you need to weep for yourselves, because what's about to come upon you and your children, it's not going to be good.
Bloodthirsty statement about what they would do if they inherited power. I mean, from Bernie Sanders' first strike statement he released a couple of weeks ago, to again our own president's statements about the use of executive power and how glorious it is to drop bombs on people with turbans and brown skin.
Now, in the beginning of the audio that I heard, Edward, he told the bankers at Goldman Sachs that you know, if he were the president, his first priority would be to defend the banks.
Yes. Yes, he sees them as the lifeblood of the economy, and he thinks that a progressive movement, again, this is 2016, he's saying this, a progressive movement, people like Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren at the time, making statements about wanting to over-regulate Wall Street. He would be the defender against this, and now he's running. If I become president.
Did he say, I thought I read that he said he's kept a list of people over the years that have annoyed him.
Yes, I believe that was in the song. We can listen to it again.
It sounds like a hit list. Let's listen. It was difficult to hear. I thought I had read today that he said he had kept a list, you know, sounding like a hit list. You know, I'm sure he's just joking. He certainly, if he were president of the United States, I'm certain he wouldn't use a drone to assassinate somebody like Soleimani.
Or at a wedding, you know, like Obama did.
Yeah, so let's listen one more time. It's hard to hear, but this is Mike Bloomberg, 2016, talking about using drones to kill his enemies.
I mean, think about it. You have predators, and the predators have missiles, and I have a list of everybody that's annoyed me or screwed me for the last 74 years.
So yeah, everything. I have a list of everybody. He did say a list.
He did say he had a list. He had a hit list of people that have annoyed him over the years. Now, this is the man that wants to be in the White House, and he's got a hit list. That's his own words. He's kept a list of people through his life that have made him mad. Got a long memory, and that sounds like that Vice President Pence you know, told everybody, zip your lips. And now the New York Post is saying the CDC director downplays the claim that the coronavirus spread is inevitable. So they're walking back what we were told just days ago.
Yes, and Robert Redfield, the CDC director you saw there on screen, he named Dr. Messonnier by name in his testimony to the subcommittee and in the Congress. And this, as part of this testimony, he said that what she was trying to say is that you need to prepare, but it's not as big of a threat. She said, Mr. Redfield said about Dr. Messonnier's statements, I think it maybe could have been done much more articulately from what the American public heard. what she was trying to say, I
thought she was very articulate.
Yeah,
I got exactly what she said.
And I actually got what she said about her calling her own school superintendent, the person in charge of her children's school, telling them, do you have telecommunications for essentially teaching my child from home? Because you may have to shut down your school. You know, Rick, this council, again, the group that Vice President Pence is in charge of, that now he's also in charge of the messaging, it also includes Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin and Larry Kudlow, the economic advisor. Yes. So you notice you haven't seen any major statements from those officials while the economy tanks. Now, well, we might know why. It's because they're intentionally making sure they don't inadvertently say anything about repo, punch protection, and bailouts. Maybe even a direction of zero interest rates.
That's right. Now, the Conservative Political Action Committee conference is going on this week. I think it ends tomorrow. And acting White House Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney spoke there today, and he...
And it's your girl, The Talk with Tiny. And I want to make something very clear. Let me drink some water on that. And I would like to make a closing statement on everything that's taking place. Father Yah, excuse me, I have a little cold, y'all. I want to pray for my brothers and sisters. I pray for y'all to come back to the Most High, y'all. I pray that you will come out of these Babylonian churches, that you will come out of Babylon and waiting on Jesus to come save you is never going to happen. And for the record, that religion has kept us enslaved and in bondage for so long. Just the fact that it's a slave religion to keep you enslaved in your mind. And as you can see, these Gentiles will stop at nothing. They're like vultures. They know very well what they do. It's not even a matter of forgive them for they know not. No, they know very well what they do. And even up to, you know, when you have certain conversations, you know, and you make a statement like, you know, well, black people are the real Hebrews, etc., etc. And these Gentiles will come to you and they will say, well, you know, it's always been like that, you know, they've been back and forth, you know, God has thrown them out and, you know, and got rid of them and, you know, when they come back. But in the end, you know, Isaiah 14 makes it very clear that, you know, the Most High will choose Jacob. That's a promise that the Most High will keep. He will weed out the weeds from the tares. And unfortunately, you know, there's so much going on that people are uninformed of. You know, our children have been sacrificed to these demons and these doctrine devils and this false deity, you know. And the delusion. For 2 Thessalonians has already mentioned it. You know how many times we can read 2 Thessalonians. You know, for 2 Thessalonians says the son of perdition will be revealed. Well, make no mistake about that these demons are the beasts of the field, the heathens, the pagans, the ones who worship wood and stone. You know, the slaves. The slaves will always be the slaves ever since history, and they will be destroyed with these heathens and their idols, if you will. So that's why it's very important for us to come out of Babylon. Babylon is not a city. Babylon is a numerous of religions. Freedom of religion, right? You got to come out of these temples that the Bible talks about. You have to be able to read with an open mind and, you know, and just pray. Pray for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. Pray for you know, for the Most High to give you true discernment, because people are going hard with it. They know that they're blessed some way, somehow. They know that they're gifted. They just don't know how to interact with their inner twin flame. They don't know how to come from out the world. Depart. Know that you are fifth dimensional. For ye are God's children of the Most High Yah. You will die like man, but your bodies are immortal. And this is what we need to understand and understand, that, we've been taught a certain way. Identity has been seized. Bloodlines have been mixed. And people have gotten it so wrong for so long. But the fact that the Most High is pouring out, the Most High is pouring out the Spirit on all His sons and daughters. All the sons and daughters of the Most High Yah is receiving this information, this type of frequency. And the one thing that these Gentiles, these RH, reptilian, ludicrous, demonic, because they're demons, they are the devils, the beasts of the field. They know that their time is up. It's short. They have no sympathy. They will beat your children, rape your children till their insides fall out. It's in their genes. It's genetic. It is genetic worldwide. Worldwide. It didn't matter what country it is in. But I promise you, anyone with green eyes, blonde hair, red skin is of that it's genetic. They're naturally hateful. They're naturally, and I don't care how many heathens slept with black people to create a Nephilim, to make a baby. Even though, you can take an apple of Israel apple and put it anywhere in the world, and that seed is always going to be of that seed, the father seed, nevertheless. But on the other hand, it didn't make it right, The world that we lived, we were forced to mix. We were forced to inherit different things. But the Most High knows what belongs to Him through bloodlines. It's a bloodline. It's a people. It's a special bloodline, and it's a people's. And that's the best part of it, And the Most High will pour out the Spirit on those who, the ones who receive this information, this knowledge. But you got some people out there, they just don't get it, man. They still going hard. They still playing church. They still waiting for a rapture. They still waiting for all these things. And yet they cry, and they cry because they know their spirit is burning. But the book is sealed to them. I've seen it. You know something is going to happen. But you're so religious. These demons got such a hold of you. You are a warlock. You become a harlot. You worship with warlocks. You're a harlot. You become a shadow that's going to fade away. Your soul is in a limbo. What is it to gain the world and to lose your very own soul? For us that don't know and don't care, woe unto you. But those who don't know, the Most High is waking people up. This slave book is a history book, man. And these Gentiles, you can play with whoever you want to play with, but you don't have the right to come and try to convince anybody of what they believe. And when somebody says something, it's because that's what their spirit and soul means. You are you, I'm me, she is she said. We all going to be judged differently. We all receive and intake information differently. You don't have to wonder or care about me, but you don't have the right to dictate my next thought. You don't feed my frequency. And you're not going to police me, because that's what you Gentile devils, demonic forces have always done, and probably always forever do, until you hit the lake of fire forever. You know? That's what you do. You love to police the righteousness. And you know what's your biggest fear? That's why you love to beat black people and Puerto Rican people who will have this nuclear, this X gene. That the frequency, you know, we are radiation. And it will come a point in time that the most thing folks fear the most, they want to kill us, because they know we have the power to rise from the Most High Yah, and it's getting ready to happen any second. And it's not going to be according to their call. It's going to be according to the Most High Yah. You know, it's going to be plenty of X-Men's and superheroes and big heroes and big powerful people in the spirit of the Most High Yah, who will rise in seconds and be able to eat these Gentiles alive. You know how many visions I've gotten? That's why it takes like 7, 8 of them to take one down. But there's going to come a point in time you won't be able to touch one. Because when we begin to learn how to use our mind with the power, we will begin to destroy. We will have the power to destroy you with a thought. Just like the good old times sake days, you know? When we came, before we even came, how we talked with a thought. We talked with our mind and thoughts. We didn't have to use words. That's why it's so powerful. The mind is so powerful. You manifest life and death lies in the tongue. But I tell you what, we will have the power in the end. We will have the last say in the end. And they want to destroy us because of that. They have FEMA camps. They have this. They have that. They have everything. But that's why the destroyer is going to destroy you all for being so wicked, conniving, evil. He who leadeth into captivity shall be led into captivity. You don't even want to get caught with these Christians. You want to depart from family or not. It didn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. At this point, people sold out. They sold out however they sold out. You just want to stay away from them. They're so gone. They're so lost. And it's sad. It is so sad to say. Religion is my enemy. I know who is the adversary. And I don't care who, what, when, and how you think, who died for your sins, who you think is coming to save you, who this, that, and the third. It's going to be phenomenal in the end when the chosen ones arise and they fight this good fight. Who will take a stand is going to receive that gamma, that purple gamma, that power, that nuclear, that X gene that they tried to keep stocks on. How dare them? But that's another video, like always. But may this video find you in the best of health. I come in the same manner. I leave in the same manner as I came. No hard feelings, or to each his own. Everyone out here is doing their thing. You have to find your way. You either you in or you not. And because you think a certain way, you do not control the minds of many. And although that's the biggest fight on this earth, is for our minds and our X genes and our gamma. If only we knew how powerful we are, all black people, to think on one accord. But that's why they colonized us. And they created some ludicrous illusion. But there will come a point where everyone will be on one accord. When that sky cracks, and the chariots come with that brimstone and God's wrath, you will see the thief in the night. Have a good night. Thank you for tuning in. Like, share, subscribe. This is your girl to talk with Tiny. When keeping it real goes wrong, you just keep it going. And forget about going wrong. If you don't like, tune out. But if you like, bless your soul. This will save your soul. Welcome to the latter days. Any second now.